This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Welcome in to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. The Dallas Cowboys on their bye week this week, 3-3 on the year, rather mediocre and kind of tired of talking about them. So we're going to go in a different direction tonight. Mike Leslie, Andrew Cely here with you once again. Where do we go from here, Andrew?
Well, the important thing is the Cowboys can't hurt you today, Cowboys fans. So let's get right into it with what's on the show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
The NBA season is right around the corner, so it's high time we talk Mavs. We are officially the official Mavs station, so we'll take a look at season expectations for the defending Western Conference champions. Texas lowered the bar in terms of fan conduct off the field and play on the field in a 30-15 loss to Georgia. How will that debacle color the rest of the Longhorns season? And on that note, we are bringing back the top 5. This time it's the worst fan moments in North American sports history. Mike, that's what's on the show. Now, who is on the show?
On the show today, Nick Angstadt from our Locked On Mavs podcast and Cory Mose from our Austin affiliate, KView. We will bring Cory back for segment 2 when it's time to talk about that UT football game and everything else it entailed last night down there in Austin. But we will start talking Mavs, and we will bring Nick Angstadt in for that. The season is just about ready to get underway. Nick, what is your jump-off thought for the Dallas Mavericks season as they look to try and now defend their Western Conference championship?
Let's go. Let's get revenge, right? Like that's the jump off thought. Is it doesn't feel like we were doing this that long ago, talking about them in the NBA Finals, but now you have Kyrie Irving talking about that this team is battle tested. We need to go back and show. Kyrie himself said, I need to show that that's not the player that I am, the way that he played in the NBA Finals. Luka Doncic is looking really good. He's looking in shape, even though he didn't play into the preseason with that calf contusion. That's not an injury we're really concerned about, but he's looking great. I mean, this team is ready to go from the jump.
The idea of an in-shape Luka Doncic to begin an NBA season feels dangerous.
I'll also tee you up on this, Nick, because you've been red hot about this on Twitter a lot. What is the deal with the NBA undervaluing Kyrie Irving's impact in general? Because it feels like every time we do these top 30 players in the NBA, he's always somewhere in the low 20s. And come playoff time, he's really either a top 10 guy or a top 15, depending on your pick. What's your take on this?
I think this happens to some players where if we're annoyed by a player, you just kind of push them to the side a little bit sometimes. And Kyrie rubbed some people the wrong way and a lot of different things that he did for good reasons, valid reasons or not valid reasons, and with his time in New York. And I think they push him down the pedestal a little bit. But you're looking at a second star in the NBA that helped lead his team to an NBA Finals, that played next to Luka Doncic. I thought it was impossible to play next to a heliocentric star like that. I thought it was impossible to stand out and to find a way to impact the game next to a guy like that. And Kyrie found a way to do it. Push back all the other narratives about him as a leader, as a teammate, all that kind of stuff, and had a really great season. And players like Damian Lillard did not have as good of a season last year. So that's where I'm kind of like, all right, how is Lillard 7 spots ahead of Kyrie on some of these lists? But Kyrie, I think he's ready to show this season that last year wasn't a fluke, that he's ready to come back. He helped recruit Klay Thompson. I mean, he's contributing a lot to this team already.
It's interesting because I think you're right. The way that you phrased what he did in New York and what he did in Boston prior to that as well, he aggravated a lot of people, and he did it so many different times that some of them can be categorized as valid gripes with Kyrie Irving, and some of them are invalid gripes with Kyrie Irving, but he had so many of them, the list was so long, that a lot of people did, all right, you know what, enough of this guy. And it was interesting to me what a renaissance he had last year, not just from a basketball perspective, but also from a human perspective. The connection that so many of us were able to develop with him through that playoff run, it changed a lot of people's opinion on him. And I think as that continues to happen, I think his basketball will be seen in a more accurate light, because I think he started to turn, the worm has turned on that, on the public opinion, I think, of Kyrie Irving.
We went a whole year without anything from Kyrie, and honestly, just mostly really positive stuff about Kyrie. We asked every single player. Now, at Media Day, especially asking teammates, they're going to say really positive things, but they went above and beyond and said things about him as a father, a son, a teammate, a brother, like that Kyrie helped them grow personally. And for all those things that were said about him as a leader, I think some of that reputation will start to wear off, but it'll take people a while to come back to, oh, Kyrie has grown, he's different now.
And listen, that's the growth. That's the point.
Right.
That to me is the point. He made mistakes. There's no two ways about it. Some of the things that he did are, I don't want to use the word unforgivable, but we're definitely, dude, what on earth are you doing?
Questionable at minimum, yes.
At minimum. But what do we ask of people when they have moments like that? Grow, learn from it, show that you're better. He's done all of those things. He's checked all of those boxes. At this point, it's time to move on.
And I think the main question now, though, where the Mavs are concerned is, can they do literally that from last year? Because it's the first time I can remember, at least in the Luka Doncic era, that they've entered a season with the weight of expectations. Like, you did this last year. You added a huge piece in Klay Thompson. Whether or not he is still the Klay Thompson, you add the name. Now all of a sudden it's like, show us something, actually like host a first-round playoff series for the first time in his time with the Mavericks. Like, how do you think this team is going to handle that pressure?
Yeah, in 2022, when the Mavs went to the Western Conference Finals, it was kind of a surprise as well. And then they came back the next year. They had lost Jalen Brunson. Yeah. And I remember at Media Day and at the beginning of that season, everyone was going, all right, now we're the hunted. Like, we're the team that's the hunted. And I don't think they handled that very well at all. Now, they had less talent on that team than before, and then they end up missing the entire postseason. But this season, I think this group is a little bit more understanding of, all right, we have these expectations on us, and I think they have now the talent to back it up, to finally say, all right, we're the hunted. We can actually withstand this. We can withstand the hunting. Like, we can fight back against the hunters in whatever way, because they added Klay Thompson. I think they got better as a team overall with some of their additions, and some of their guys are going to get better in Derek Lively and Jaden Hardy and some of their young guys. Luka Doncic is 25, can still get better. I mean, we can talk about all these guys. They've gotten better, and this is the deepest team Luka's ever had, so I think they're ready to back it up this time.
And to me, that's the biggest thing, what you said about the 2022 coming off of that Western Conference Finals run. They may have said, oh, hey, we're the hunted now. Did any of us really believe it after Brunson left? Like, it wasn't real. This time it's real. Now you've got pieces. Now you've got guys that are, like you're saying, expected to get better this year. This is tangible reality for the Dallas Mavericks. Now you really are part of the elite crust of the NBA. And now your expectations are for real, and now you got to go live up to them.
And now, so it's funny because we were having this discussion about the Mavs, and we've had this discussion about the Longhorns for a significant amount of time. When can they crest over that edge and finally get back to it? Well, we saw a bit of this season how they handled being the #1 ranked team in the country. We'll get into that discussion coming up next in the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show after their loss to Georgia. Stay with us.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
Following their loss to Georgia, Texas drops from the #1 ranking to #5 overall in the AP Top 25. They will face #25 Vanderbilt next Saturday. And the New York Liberty win their first WNBA title with a 67-62 win over the Minnesota Lynx in overtime in a winner-take-all Game 5.
Back on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, time to talk about the Texas Longhorns. #1 in the country and looked great to start the season. Did not look good in the first 2 quarters of last night's game against the Georgia Bulldogs, and they suffer their first loss of the year. Cory Mose from KView back with us now. Nick Angstadt will hang around as well. Gentlemen, I imagine you watched the game. Cory, I know you watched the game. Nick, I imagine you did last night too, because who wasn't watching that football game? Cory, for you down in Austin, what is the reaction down there on the 40 acres to certainly a lackluster first half and ultimately the first loss of the year for UT?
Yeah, it's basically disappointment, right? You spoke about how the first half went bad offensively, but if you've been to these games and covering Texas like I have, like, you've noticed this has been a trend for the Longhorns over the past couple of weeks. Dating back to even last week against Oklahoma, they had 3 straight 3-and-outs, and the offense just didn't look good. Now, in that game against OU, the defense stood tall, and they didn't give up any points when they turned the ball over in the horrible field position. But you can't do that against the #5 team in the country, right? Georgia's going to take advantage of those opportunities. And so that's been the biggest knock on Sarkisian right now, is that this offense that you're supposed to be this offensive guru under the Nick Saban tree hasn't been rolling to get the game started. And then you're looking at catch up. And when you play catch up against Georgia, you see what happens. You won't catch up, and you take your first L of the season.
It could have been much worse, too. 2 first-half interceptions thrown by Georgia. They couldn't seem to capitalize with touchdowns. It was a lot of field goals. Kirby Smart was very nearly regretting that heavily, talked about it at halftime that was a problem. Nick, from more of a fan perspective, watching the game just from afar and just enjoying the football game, what did you think of last night and how that game transpired?
Yeah, can we talk about the fans throwing stuff all over the field and start having to go run over there and tell them to stop? I mean, that's the thing that I'm taking away from this game. I know it was a big loss for Texas and they're back on top and we're all excited about on the field, but the fans became part of the story, which I think it doesn't happen very often in sports. And I think that was an insane thing that happened in this game.
Yeah, $250,000 fine from the SEC today.
100%. But I think more so because we've seen beer cans getting thrown on a field before. Like this is, it's terrible when it happens, but this is nothing new. The questionable issue came when it all of a sudden stopped the game enough for the refs to have another conversation to overturn what was a terrible call. So, Cory, I'm curious because watching your Twitter feed, I think you were just as confused as we were watching at home. How did you take that entire environment into effect, and what was your main takeaway from the refs ultimately rewarding bad fan behavior in a way?
You have no idea. Everyone was just confused in the press box. There's no way they just took this moment of all the beer cans getting thrown on the field to reconvene and talk about it. It's y'all just reconvene to make the call. So how are you going to talk about you're going to reconvene again and change the call? So I've never seen that before in my life. And you spoke about, we've seen beer cans thrown on the field all the time, but I would say you don't see that at Texas. And that's what a lot of people have been complaining about here. I was going down the elevator after that occurrence, and one UT alum, he was like, you know what? I've been going to games for 50 years, and I've never seen this happen before at UT. And so they kind of take of it as a disappointment to all the student sections that did that, because they want to take honor and pride in who UT is. And they're like, they're not Texas Tech. That's what a lot of people like to say. You're not in Lubbock anymore. And so they show a lot of remnants. I know, straight. It's a straight shot. But that's the whole sentiment around Texas right now. It's that's not who we're supposed to represent. And also, that's not how they represent on the field either, with the way they looked in that first half.
Lubbock, Texas on line 2 upstairs in the newsroom right now. We got some people frustrated. We went back and looked at it on the TV copy between the moment that the pass interference call was announced and the moment that the official came back and said, after further discussion, 4 minutes and 10 seconds went by. There are touchdown drives that happen in less time, less real time than it took for them to reconvene and change that call. That was unheard of. And the SEC weighed in today and said that all rules were followed. How?
Okay, so my question in this is, what kind of can of worms does this open up? I think a lot of us have kind of accepted the sky judge, and to a certain extent it's in the NBA too. Well, they just kind of come in and either change a call real quick or ensure something is enforced the right way. This is different. This was a judgment call that was overturned in what was already a tough situation, but ultimately changed the course of the second half and made things far more interesting. Where do we go from here? Because at what point do we stop and say, hey, we can't do this for every game? Because if we're switching on multi-view, you're not going to have someone on watching every specific game to make sure all of this is handled appropriately. Cory, what do you think?
Well, that's a good point. And it all went back to they made the right call technically. If you look at the replay,
that is true.
It's that it was clearly not a pass interference. It arguably could have been an offensive PI. But instead, they changed it to just no call in general. And like you mentioned, the big change of events, because with that interception, then UT had a chance to get within one score compared to maybe Georgia going up 3 scores. And honestly, the comeback was over after that. And so I think it was a pivotal call and it needs to be made right, but not in that banner. And I think that's where you open the can of worms of, okay, every other student section around the country saw that. And so it's bet. If we don't like a call, we'll see if we can get them to sway it another way. And so that who knows what goes from here, and it's very dangerous at this point.
I was just a little confused by, Nick, could you imagine Joey Crawford getting someone buzzed down in his ear and saying, you got the call wrong, let's switch it during a timeout?
Yeah, it happens all the time in the NBA. They change 3s to 2s. They called a shot from the Mavs, I think in the playoffs last year, off because they looked back and saw that a guy was standing out of bounds. So this happens a lot. They have that whole room in Secaucus where they look at all these they look at all the plays that are happening, and they call down with judgment calls, especially if it's going to affect the end of the score. And so, yeah, I mean, they do this in other sports. As long as the call was made right, maybe the refs needed some more time. That was such a high leverage situation. They just needed the 4 minutes, Mike, to just calm down and be like, you know what, guys, I think we need to go look at that. And they got it right. So that's all that it needs.
That is what ultimately matters. That does open up a giant can of worms, though, that now student sections across the country are going to go, hey, let's buy the refs time to get the call right and just throw a bunch of stuff on the field. That is...
Don't call it home court advantage for nothing.
I was going to say 10-cent beer night. 10-cent beer night. We'll get the fans really riled up. That is a tease, because when we come back, we're talking about the top 5 worst fan sports moments in North American sports history. Stay with us on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
And now it's time for the top 5, sponsored by the Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Time now for the top 5. Today we are looking at the worst fan moments in North American sports history. Thank you, Longhorn fans, for the segue. This is about actions that happened during the game, by the way, so I'm not talking post-game riots like in Vancouver after 2011 in the Stanley Cup Final. So let's start with number 5 here. At number 5, we're starting strong. It's Bloody Sunday, the infamous Hail Mary play in which Drew Pearson pushed off.
Boy, here we go. Here we go.
The Cowboys win over the Vikings in a divisional round in 1975 in Minnesota. Fans threw bottles at the head official, and he got drilled by a whiskey bottle in the head with gashed. Corey, let's start with you here. How do you feel about Bloody Sunday?
Son of a Vikings fan, just to give you a little bit of context here.
He also admitted he did push off. It just wasn't intentional push off. You can parse it later. The point being, bad fan behavior. Corey, what do you think?
I mean, like if you get gashed, I mean that's crazy, right? Let's put in perspective about if blood gets drawn from you, that's a problem. Unlike, of course, what happened last night, but yes, that's up tier, top, disgusting behavior from fans. I don't care if you are a Vikings historian, but at the end of the day, it's not okay, right? It's not okay.
Fair enough. All
Fans down here do not know that it's Bloody Sunday. It's the Hail Mary game.
I know. It's a fake Hail Mary anyway. All right, at number 4, it is a little off the wall here. In 1979, the White Sox sold 99-cent tickets to fans if they bought a disco record to be blown up on field. They planned to do it between doubleheader games in mid-July. Brilliant marketing. But the blast destroyed the field, and fans stormed it afterward, trying to invade the clubhouse. Riot police were called. 39 people were arrested, and the White Sox forfeited the game. Nick, have you ever heard of Disco Demolition Night?
I had not heard of that, but it just sounds like a bad PR stunt. This isn't a fan moment. This is like a bad team decision moment. This is not on the fans at all. They did what they were supposed to do.
Well, okay, they blew it up, but I don't think they were supposed to storm the field afterward. Now, granted.
No, take it off the list.
Take it off the list. Oh, come on. 39 people arrested for the whole shtick.
It's a very, like, AA baseball kind of promotion.
Exactly.
That's what that feels like.
A modern-day AA baseball.
Yeah, fair enough.
Rough Riders are doing this.
All right, at number 3, we head to Cleveland for Bottlegate. The year is 2001. Browns trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. Down 15-10 to the Jags at home. They convert a critical 4th down with 48 seconds left, then spike the ball to stop the clock, but the officials still went back to review the 4th down conversion anyway, after the spike. They overturned the call. Fans went ballistic, throwing beer bottles and trash cans on the field. The officials actually called the game off, but the league office made the Jags take 2 kneel downs to ice it later on. Mike, your thoughts here?
The first thought I have is the 2001 Browns had playoff hopes.
I know, they were 6-6.
That's amazing to me. How is that actually possible? I had forgotten this one. I had honestly forgotten this one. I mean, listen, all of this is not what fans are supposed to be doing. And again, thanks to the Texas fans for introducing this segment into our lives right now. Yeah, I had forgotten about this one. You can't be throwing trash cans.
Yeah.
That's next level dedication if you're throwing trash cans on the field.
They literally shepherded the Jags off the field down the tunnel and then brought them back out because the league office said they had to kneel down to make the result official, which is, I don't think they'd ever do that today, putting player safety and all that aside.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on now to number 2. And as I kind of teased earlier, the 10-cent beer night. The 70s were a different animal, man. 1974, the Cleveland Indians lost control of a promotional game against the Rangers. They sold beers for 10 cents each. Things devolved fast. Fans fought players. Objects were thrown. Cleveland was eventually forced to forfeit the game. The umpires said fans were uncontrollable beasts. Nick, famously from Cincinnati, I'll give this one from you. What do you think about this?
Yeah, having grown up in Cincinnati, seeing Cleveland on this list twice, just it's great. I'm down for it. Anytime we can trash Cleveland. If they trash it themselves, that's fine, but I'm happy to do it too.
I mean,
if you're selling 10-cent beers, you kind of get what you're asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing I keep coming back to. Alcohol seems to be involved in every single one of these.
No.
Imagine that. All right, let's move on now to our number 1 here. Could it be anything else A number one case of fan conflict with players, the malice at the palace. Speaking of alcohol, Pacers ruined their last best shot at getting Reggie Miller a ring. Ron Artest was made a household name for all the wrong reasons. Name itself is legendary and self-explanatory. Corey, I will give you this one. Did we get number one right here?
Oh, for sure. I mean, come on, dude. Ron Artest going into the stand and swinging. Nothing beats that, right? Nothing beats that. Shout out Meadow, right? Oh, I'm trying to get some respect. Some world peace. That wasn't no peace that night, though.
No,
he
not
some hands.
Definitely not.
Some of these other ones are kind of funny-ish. This one's not funny. This one was ugly, and this one was terrible.
So my question is this. I think we've all seen beer thrown on the field on some level. Was there something when this topic got thrown your direction just jumped off the page like, I had this come to mind? Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you specified in North America, but Monica Seles, the tennis star, got stabbed one time at a game. That was in Germany, so that wasn't in North America. I feel like, I don't know if there's a specific moment that comes to mind, but Jackie Robinson somewhere has to be on this list. I feel like there's some moments there.
Goodness.
Probably had a couple. And then the other one that came to mind in the NBA was Russell Westbrook. Anytime he goes to Utah, something awful happens. Somebody says something terrible to him or something happens. And so Russell Westbrook just verbally accosted in Utah is probably what I would put.
There's a common theme to your ideas, and it's not alcohol for once. There's another accelerant to some of these situations. The one that jumped to my mind when I saw this, I was there for Blue Jays Rangers Game 5 in Toronto back in 2015, and they were throwing beer bottles on the field, and a baby got hit by one of the either soda cans or beer bottles or whatever. That one was pretty ugly too.
And that was ugly because they got the call right on the field, and the fans were just pissed at it. Like there's a different way around that whole shtick. Corey, anything jump to mind for you?
Nothing really jumped to mind, but I did think what Nick just said lastly was Utah. Anytime you step into Utah, I mean, that place, you're going to get
city.
It's horrible. It is horrible. And then we spoke about things get crazy in the 70s. Yeah, I was on Nick's brain work there when it's like 70s. Yeah, some things happened back then that 70s, we probably don't want to do now.
50s. There are common themes here. Utah and Lubbock, not on Cory Mose's to-do list.
We're just crossing people off today. Like, you're not coming on the show. No, we're done.
Cleveland, gone. Utah, gone.
Nick, Corey, thank you guys so much for joining us in the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We really appreciate it. Stay with us. Mike's Final Take is coming up next.
A word for the Dallas Cowboys front office: do not go make a trade to try and make this team better. It's not that I think this team is good enough. It's that I don't think that they're good enough to be worth trying. This team is not a player or two away. If you can somehow go trade for an offensive lineman, 2 defensive ends, a wide receiver, and a running back, if you can do all of those things between now and the November 5th trade deadline, be my guest. Go nuts. Make this team better. They're 5 or 6 players away. If somehow Micah Parsons being healthy, Deron Bland being healthy, Kalen Carson being healthy allows you to go somehow win in San Francisco and win against Atlanta these next 2 weeks before the trade deadline, sure, go make some trades. Until this team, Anders, shows that they're worth it, they're not worth it.
It's funny, the dichotomy against the Rangers, who were a relief pitcher away, who went out and got Chapman and made a difference, at least in the short term.
Yes, this is not that situation.
No, it is not. Thank you so much for watching the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. We will see you guys next week after the Niners game.
This has been the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.